All right, so this is Chapter 1, Lesson 2. This is actually a Presley that you're looking at. And Lesson 2 goes over Stevenson's trip, and he is the author of a book like Treasure Island, a classic book, and it goes over his trip from East Coast to West Coast and some of the landforms that he encountered as he traveled across the country. And that's what we're going to talk about today is different landform regions. And a landform region is just those regions that are broke down by similar landforms. And landforms can be plains, mountains, plateaus, hills, valleys, all those defining features of that area. By doing this, it makes it easier to compare and contrast different parts of the country. So, for example, we can compare Indiana as fairly flat, and if you move east into Pennsylvania, you start finding mountains, hills. It's quite a bit different, even if the trees and flora and fauna aren't that much different. The land definitely is. And the other factor why we do this in the region is because climate can really be affected by the landforms that are present. If you live on the east side of a mountain, you may get more rain than you do on the west side of a mountain because of the thing called a rain shadow. First landform is the coastal plain. It starts it runs along the Atlantic Ocean. It has a very small strip of land starting in Massachusetts. It starts no more than 10 miles wide, and it gets much wider and extends west into Texas and Mexico. You can see that this map here kind of cuts it off in Georgia, Alabama place. However, it does extend all the way down into Texas. You can see that in your social studies book itself, and you can see how much further it actually extends. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Piedmont. The Piedmont is basically those foothills. It's the base of the mountains. It's that part where it goes from flat land into more hilly before you reach the mountains themselves. The Piedmont begins in New Jersey, extends through Alabama, so it covers a large section of the East Coast. The Appalachian Mountains rise above the Piedmont. They are the oldest mountains in the U.S., and they are covered by trees. They're very old mountains, and so erosion has worn away at the peaks, and the highest peaks in the Appalachians is 7,000 feet. A lot of people will go on vacation. They'll say they'll go to the Great Smoky, Blue Ridge, Catskill, White Mountains. They're all smaller mountain ranges that are part of the larger Appalachian mountain range. And you have the interior plains. Excuse me. They stretch across the middle of the country between the two mountain ranges, between the two major mountain ranges. Prairie is an area of flat or rolling ground covered by grasses. Prairie area is often called the Central Plains. So those central or the Great Plains, flat, less rivers, no trees. The reason that this happens is because these areas don't get as much water. Trees require lots and lots of water to grow. Grass doesn't require quite as much. So you have these large swaths of land that are nothing but prairie grasses. No trees to break it up. Kansas, Nebraska, large areas of these states, almost the entire states, are part of the Great Central Plains or Great Plains, where there's very, very few trees. Then you come to the Rocky Mountains. Rocky Mountains run from Canada through Mexico, or Canada and Mexico. You can even say they all the way extend all the way to South America, where they become the Andes. Mountains are higher because they're younger than the Appalachian Mountains. The Great Basin is an area west of the Rockies that is a large area of mostly dry land. The basin is low, bowl-shaped with higher land all around it, and this is where the landform regions really determine what's going on, because this is where Death Valley is. Death Valley happens to be 250 feet below sea level. It's also the hottest place, one of the hottest places on Earth. I think it's got the highest recorded temperature, if I'm not mistaken. But it's in this bowl between these, in the mountain ranges, and rain isn't getting there. Rain's not getting over those mountains. Those clouds can't carry the moisture up over the mountain. And so all the rain falls on the eastern side of the mountain. The western side, where Death Valley is dry as a bone. And then there's mountains on the other side that just feed into that. So that's why the Death Valley is the way it is. As you continue moving west of the Great Basin, you have other smaller mountain ranges, Sierra Nevada, the Cascade Mountains. They create also fertile valleys. Central Valley in California, 400-mile stretch, that is where a lot of farming occurs in California. And it is very, very fertile. If you look at your map on your social studies, you'll look out west, you see mountains, 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 and then you see that green again, and then mountains, mountains, mountains as you move to the Pacific coast. Pacific coast mountain ranges lead directly to the ocean. The Pacific coast has very little flat land. So if you look at your social studies book, you see how it starts. You kind of are flat, low, then you go moving the Appalachians, then you are flat, 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 maybe some hills at a plateau here and there. But then you move back into the Rocky Mountains, you have a few valleys here and there, but it takes basically mountains all the way to the coast. And that is basically Lesson 2. What I would like you to do as your reflection piece, you read a little bit about Stevenson's trip as he crossed the continent. I would like you to write a paragraph on if you started your journey in New York City and moved all the way across the country to San Francisco, what kind of landforms would you expect to encounter? I do not want you to add that you'd see the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. I would like you to include at least 4 different landforms that you would see as you moved across the country. Again, not including, you can't put Atlantic and Pacific Ocean as landforms. Those are bodies of water. Thanks.